Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And on our live line this morning, it's State Senate candidate Democrat Amanda Kirchgessner. Amanda, thank you for joining us here on Columbus Day.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Good morning.
Well, Governor Andrew Cuomo said over the weekend that Saturday was a sad day for America because of the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. Did you have any thoughts on that statement from the governor?
Well, I think now more than ever it's important to dig in at the state level and get the Reproductive Health Act passed into law.
Yes, that's the second part of the statement from the governor. The governor says because of the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, he's going to reintroduce an abortion rights bill. He says it'll codify Roe v. Wade in New York State. The governor's critics say it'll expand the abortion and go past what Roe v. Wade did originally. What are your thoughts on this, Amanda Kirchgessner?
Honestly, a woman's right to choose, or anybody's right to choose what they do with their own body, should be left to the individual, and that's pretty much where I stand. It's a very hands-off approach in terms of government. I think the government sets the laws, and individuals are left to decide for themselves what's best for them.
Amanda Kirchgessner, our guest here on the Newsmaker Show today. Now, you say the big issues for your campaign these days are food security, housing, healthcare, climate change, and wealth inequality. Let's start out with food security, Amanda.
Yeah, I have been volunteering at the Enfield Food Pantry for portions of my life since I was born, pretty much. And through the campaign, I've been a client in Enfield and volunteering and just re-familiarizing myself with the needs and struggles of people who are living on a razor's edge. You know, most of the folks I'm meeting have jobs, they have degrees, they have children, they're seniors who worked full careers, and in retirement they're just struggling to make the ends meet. So food security is a huge issue that we're up against here in the 58. The Food Bank of the Southern Tier is only growing its operation. It's not getting smaller. This doesn't strike me as while it's a necessary service, it doesn't strike me as a solution-oriented service. So
Amanda, I'm sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something else, Amanda.
Well, I really want to see us getting into producing more food locally for local people. I think that's one thing that we can do. One ideal I espouse is that the people who grow our food need to make enough money to earn, to buy food. So I think that this is a conversation I'm having with people at all levels of the chain in food production, from growing it to selling it in the grocery store. I want to make sure that we can close a lot of those gaps.
Amanda, how about housing? That's another big issue for you.
Well, even as I travel around some of these smaller towns throughout the district, people who grew up in the region feel like they are being pushed out because they can't afford to buy a house or they can't afford to pay rent in the towns they grew up in. This is a serious problem. I mean, I'm all for competitive markets, but if your child can't find a job that pays them enough to live in the town they grew up in, they're going to leave New York State. And that's a problem. When families are spread out, you lose a lot of that connection. And, you know, I know for myself, like my sister had moved to California some years back, finally moved back. Like having my sister here with my nephew has been such a blessing in my life to have that nearby. But we wouldn't be able to afford to do it if she wasn't living in my mom's house. So I find that's a very common pattern these days, that adults with children are living with their parents and multiple generations are living under the same roof again. Not that that's necessarily the worst thing ever, but it's not the tradition that Americans have become used to.
Another big issue you say for you in your campaign is health care. Obamacare versus the attempts to repeal it. What do you make of all that, Amanda?
Well, right now, about 20% of New Yorkers, well, not quite 20%, I think about 10% of New Yorkers are still uncovered And a big problem that we're running into is that even folks that have insurance can't afford the co-pays and can't afford the deductibles, so they're still not seeking care. So they're buying into an industry, the health insurance industry, paying ungodly amounts of money for care that they aren't even receiving. That's a huge problem, and that's a big gap in service. We've got the New York Health Act that's been sitting in the state Senate untouched after 4 sessions now. The Assembly's passed it, and it would move us to a guaranteed health care system where everybody would be covered. It would be based on a progressive income tax structure. The mechanism has yet to be formulated, and I believe over 200 people would be involved in creating that system. The big lift here is that the unfunded mandate of Medicaid would be removed from our county tax budgets, and throughout this district, Medicaid and healthcare costs are often the largest chunk of our county budgets. In Steuben County, I believe it's about 40% of your budget is going to fund Medicaid. That's a lot of cheddar.
Talking live on our Newsmaker line this morning with Democrat State Senate candidate Amanda Kirchgessner from Tompkins County. Another big issue on your campaign list of issues, climate change.
I mean, I live in Ulysses, and I've been living in a cloud for the past 3 days. I can't remember weather like this as a child, and, things seem to be changing viscerally to me. I'd love to talk to some more scientists about this, but from the research that I've seen, the temperatures are slated to rise, and we're still unsure as to what effects that could have on the planet as a whole, but it could affect tides, it will affect weather patterns. We have a few advantages in the region where we live. We have fresh water, and we have excellent arable land. Like, we can grow a lot of food here. We just need to be ready for potential changes in the weather. Whether that means making sure that we have enough greenhouse space available to make sure our plants get a healthy start if spring comes late, or if we have to come up with some creative technologies to make sure our crops are protected if it snaps cold early. We just need to be prepared, because this will result in food insecurity, and when people become desperate for food, things get really ugly really quickly, Brian, and that's something I am very concerned about. I think that if we can ensure that the basics are available for all of the people throughout the 58th district, for all of the people throughout New York State, I think we'll have a much healthier foundation to rest upon. But it starts with meeting people's basic needs, and that starts with being prepared for the worst. Because when you prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen, you have bounty, you have plenty, and you're able to help your neighbors.
Speaking live with Amanda Kirchgessner, the State Senate Democrat candidate for the Tom O'Mara seat in the Senate. By the way, Amanda, and I say this as we're going through the list of questions on issues, were there any debates set yet with Senator Tom O'Mara? Were you hoping to debate him?
Well, I know that we're looking at several dates in later this month. I'm hoping that he'll commit to I don't know if it was a debate as much as it was a forum actually in Enfield, my hometown, related to rural issues, and I think that would be a really eye-opening event for folks. That would be October 22nd. There are a couple dates that we're looking at in Corning area. I'm happy to sit down and have a conversation, debate with this man whenever he's willing and able to be in a room with me. I think that the voters would love to hear us in debate. I think that's something that we owe to the voters.
Now, in another race, it's a congressional race, Democrat Tracy Mitrano, the news on her this morning is that Tracy Mitrano has a new campaign ad out. Do you mind if I played it for you and just get your reaction on that, Amanda?
Yeah, go right ahead.
As a teacher, attorney, and mother of two, I've lived here all my life. So I work for my community every single day. But Washington insiders like Tom Reed and his special interest donors only look out for themselves. I'm Tracy Mitrano, and for too long, money has corrupted politics in Washington. I'll never take corporate money because in Congress, I'll work for you. I approve this message because career politicians like Tom Reed have failed us. It's time for new leadership in Washington.
And did you have any thoughts on that commercial?
I mean, that's the first that I've heard it, and I mean, I'd probably have to hear it again to have any real
Sure.
opinion about it.
Have you met with Tracy Mitrano yet?
Yeah, I've crossed paths and had conversations with Tracy numerous times on the trail. I think she's got a fire in her belly. I love what she's talking about in relation to rural broadband. I think we could do a lot to upgrade our grid in that respect, making sure that people have access to the technology that's available most other places in the world. I think is really important, especially in terms of education and I know farming applications. I think those are some really important issues that some federal money would help us here in the 58th bring folks up to the 21st century. You know, I think money in politics is a huge problem. Absolutely. I would agree with that assessment. Corporate money in particular, I would love to close the LLC loophole at the state level and make sure that, you know, that money comes from real people, not some business interests. I mean, I think that that's a big problem. You know, real estate developers do own the New York State government right now. Certainly seems that way by and large. The health insurance industry has a pretty big hand in it. You know, I'm just, who am I? You know, I'm just some waitress from a diner who's been talking to real live working people my whole life and listening to them and then delivering what they tell me. So that's where I'm coming from. You know, it's a different model for government. It's one of service. I think, you know, we need to really re-examine and address, you know, what we feel we need from our representatives. The whole idea is we elect them to serve us, and I've been serving people my whole life. So that's my angle on that.
Sure thing. We're talking with Amanda Kirchgessner, who's running for state senate against Senator Tom O'Mara. In your answer there, Amanda, you mentioned the word grid. On the topic of the grid, the governor is looking at putting millions of dollars into upgrading the electrical grid. I think from what I've read and heard, this will help wind energy a lot in getting the wind energy into the grid. Did you have any thoughts on that, Amanda?
I mean, to be honest, like, I guess I need to do a little more research on that, Brian, but I'm all for investing in our infrastructure, especially if there's a clear benefit to the citizens of New York. And, I mean, my biggest concern there is that NYSEG is owned by Iberdrola over in Spain, you know, so a lot of the money that we're going to be spending on that's going to be going over to Spain. I mean, that's my biggest problem there. But if it's going to help us here, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to help figure that out. And, you know, I'd love to see the lines buried by and large. I think with some of this extreme weather we've been having, that putting lines underground would probably be a safer place for them. But, you know, that has yet to be proven or determined. It's just
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. We'll take a break and check the forecast. We're talking live this morning with Democrat State Senate candidate Amanda Kirchgessner.
Columbus Day means extra savings for you on all furniture, recliners, and mattresses at Davidson's Furniture. This is Mike Davidson, inviting you to shop our store for the best values and lowest prices on name brands in Western New York. Broyhill, Lazy Boy, Serta, Bassett, and more are all on sale and available for immediate delivery, or you can custom order at the same sale prices. Interest-free financing on any size purchase and quick professional delivery for you. Don't miss out. Come in today for Davidson Furniture's Columbus Day sale going on now.
From the Fox Business Network, major retailers are fighting for the business left behind by the Toys R Us bankruptcy and closing. The Wall Street Journal says Target appears to be making the most aggressive commitment. Later this month, it is adding up to 500 square feet of toy retail space in more than 500 Target stores. Walmart is also expanding its toy section, as is Kohl's and JCPenney. Toy manufacturers say Amazon is planning a hard copy toy catalog, and it will be distributed at Whole Foods. Delta Airlines first new A220 jet made its maiden flight from the Airbus facility near Montreal over the weekend. Delta is the first U.S. airline to order the jet. Stocks lost more ground on Friday, with concerns trade tensions between the U.S. and China will impact tech stocks. The Dow dropped 180, NASDAQ down 91, S&P down 16. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Jenny Cosola.
To experience relief from muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This non-greasy foam is proven to relieve muscle cramps fast and reduce muscle soreness. TheraWorks Relief can also prevent muscle cramps before they start, so you can get a full night's sleep without having to worry about muscle cramps. TheraWorks Relief only takes minutes to apply, absorbs quickly, and it works. TheraWorks Relief is a life-changing product, and you don't even need a prescription. Get TheraWorks Relief today in the pain relief aisle at Walmart, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens pharmacies, or TheraWorksRelief.com.
That time again to check in with meteorologist Rob Carolyn. Hey, Rob, how's it looking for today?
Weather-wise, Brian, one of the things we're keeping a watch out for today is some developing sun. It's already starting to clear out to our west. Sun's out in Buffalo this morning. It's partly sunny in Jamestown, mostly sunny right now in Erie, and eventually some of that sun moves in here. Temperatures, they'll climb up to about 70 to 75. Watch for a shower as the day goes on, and it is going to be unusually warm right through Wednesday. Sunrise this morning was at 7:16. It'll set tonight at 6:39. Clouds, couple of showers in the forecast for the nighttime hours. Lows tonight dropping back only to about 65. For tomorrow, looks like it's going to probably be a mostly sunny day, and summer-like, 75 to 80 tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night, clear to partly cloudy, we're 60 to 65, and then sunny and warm for Wednesday, 75 to 80. Brian, by Friday, we're going to be a whole lot cooler.
Thank you, Rob. Talking with State Senate candidate Democrat Amanda Kirchgessner this morning. Amanda, the whole raise the age issue is in the news this morning in New York City. Raise the age, of course, has to do with raising the age of the inmates and how old they have to be when they go into prison-type facilities. The New York Post is reporting this morning that 17 jail guards were injured at a brawl at the New Horizon Juvenile Center, which is apparently in the Bronx. And the Post reports, and understanding that the Post is a conservative newspaper, we have a Democrat governor who got raised the age passed. That was a big issue with Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is on the State Corrections Committee. He was very much opposed to it, as was State Senator Kathy Young, and I'm pretty sure your opponent, State Senator Tom O'Mara, was too. So, again, the conservative viewpoint from the Post is that the raise the age has caused problems because, according to this Post article, the more the teenagers have been moved into this facility, moving them out of Rikers Island, the 16 and 17-year-olds, the more fights have broken out in this other facility in the Bronx. Wondering, Democrat State Senate candidate Amanda Kirchgessner, did you have any thoughts on the whole raise the age issue?
So, I mean, we have a deep-seated trauma issue here in New York State, here in America. I mean, our children are deprived of their basic needs from a very early age, especially when you look at the stability or instability of the family. And there's lots of children coming up in single-parent homes. I know my father died at 13, and if it weren't for living in a very tight-knit community, and having the volunteer fire department to fall back on, my life could have turned out very, very differently. So I want to say that most children who commit crimes are coming from a very traumatized past. So when you cage children like animals, because let's be honest, Rikers Island is a holding pen for people that treats them like animals. you're not going to affect the best results. It's not going to bring the best out in people at all. We have a jail problem in New York State. We have a prison problem in New York State. We are criminalizing social illness and social problems. People who are poor and desperate make the best choices they know how to make. And when you don't have incredibly many tools in your box, they're probably not going to be what someone with more opportunity would say was a good choice. But if you're trying to feed your kids and all you can find is some minimum wage job that doesn't even cover your rent, selling drugs might look pretty good. And
I'm sorry, and go ahead and finish that sentence.
I strayed from the topic, but the whole point is that when you treat people like animals and then try to met that out, and you're moving children into facilities for children after they've been treated like adults and have had to be incredibly aggressive to protect themselves, it's going to be messy. And I am sorry that any corrections officers were hurt. I'm sorry that any children were hurt in this transition. It's something that should have had a little more thought. These kids should have been going to a different place before going into the other facility, if you ask me. Something specifically geared towards helping them transition into a less carceral situation.
Yes, and Amanda, we're down to about the last minute. I interrupted you on the thought. You were talking about growing up poor and in difficult situations, and I interrupted you when you said drug dealing probably looks pretty good. I know that you weren't endorsing drug dealing. I was planning on interrupting you, and then you said that. So you can go ahead and finish that thought as well.
Well, the only point I was trying to make there is that if you don't have very many options and drug dealing is one source of income that's more available to you, if you're trying to feed your kids or if you're trying to keep a roof over your head, I try not to pass judgment. I don't know people's full stories, and until I know more about an individual's experience, I'm very hesitant to hold judgment because, judge not lest you be judged, right? And I think that if we focus on the issues and the problems that people speak to in their communities and their neighborhoods, a lot of these less desirable behaviors would all but disappear. If people had health care, they could go see a therapist if they needed to talk to somebody. They could go see a doctor if they were having health problems. These issues wouldn't snowball. People could get help at the beginning when they really need it, as opposed to try and seek help later on when they're in over their heads and don't know left from right. And I think that that's a really important, distinction to make, that if we could do more up front, we can prevent a lot from happening down the line. If we can make sure that young children have enough food to eat and a safe place to live, they're less likely to commit acts of violence because they'll feel safe and secure in their persons. And these are issues. It's a different approach, making sure that basic needs are met to prevent long-term problems from happening.
We've been talking with Democrat State Senate candidate Amanda Kirchgessner. We're out of time, Amanda, though. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Brian.